Hey there, everybody. Welcome back to Letterboxing with Commentating Nerd. Last week on the show, we talked a bunch about the 80s, and I started my Years of Review series with the 80s, and we talked about my favorite movies from each year of the 1980s. And also, I came up with a top 100 of that decade. And now this week, we're moving on to the 90s. I get to show off my 90s kid cred. Um, I get to show off how orange-blooded I am with the Nickelodeon running through my 90s kid blood, and I just love the 90s. Now, last week, if you guys remember, I was talking about how I have always felt like I love the 80s, like the 80s and things that come out of the 80s and movies and whatnot, but I found that I had seen way too few 80s movies than I realized, and it made it difficult to make top tens with some of the years. I can safely say that in the 90s, I do not have that problem. In fact, I have way too many movies that I've seen from the 1990s that is going to make this project making rankings for each year and making a top 100 incredibly difficult. And it's even more difficult because, as I said, I'm a 90s kid, so I grew up through the whole 90s. I was born in 1989, so basically the whole 90s is my like coming of age years, basically. I'm wearing my late 90s Disney Channel original movies shirt from Brink. Um, None of those will be on this show, unfortunately, because Disney Channel original movies, I'm counting them as TV movies, and I'm so far, whenever I've done decade rankings, I've only done feature movies that feature movies that come out in theaters or would be considered a feature movie instead of a TV movie. So and also DComs, I can share with you guys sometime just what my favorites of Disney Channel original movies are. So we'll get that another time. But there's way too many 90s movies I need to fit in to try to also squeeze in the late 90s Disney Channel original movies that I do love also. Um, but anyway, I'm a 90s kid, and I have a lot of nostalgia for a lot of the movies that I'm going to be talking about tonight. And a lot of the movies on my list, even more than the 80s, are going to look maybe pretty silly to many of you who are thinking about what they think of as the best movies from the 90s. But so many of these movies I rewatched. There are some of the movies I've rewatched more times in my life than anything else out of the 90s. I have my personal favorites for sure, and uh, some of my personal favorites have really challenged some of the titans of the 90s on the when we get to the decades list. So you guys are going to see some movies that look strange, that are higher up than you might rank them, but I love them so much I just don't care. Uh, they do. You will see star ratings next to a lot of those nostalgia faves of mine, but I really don't like doing that because, like, you just can't rate those sorts of movies the same way as you would rate, uh, I don't know, just movies that come out now and that you're just getting uh, accompanied with. I guess you can have nostalgia for any movie after a certain number of years pass, but um, these ones were. Uh, uh, kind of the movies that formed me as a fan of movies and TV and like definitely have a lot of love for the things that I watched growing up, and you're definitely going to see that on this video. So, okay, so that's enough intro, and I don't have any special slides to show you guys this week. No extra Hitchcock this week. We're just going to get right into the 90s love, and we're going to go straight to my first list. We're going to go to the films of 1990 and what are my favorites. You guys are going to notice that I have a lot more honorable mentions in certain years than I did during the 80s lists, but I'm going to try to talk about each film, but I'm going to try to talk about them uh, I'm going to try not to go too long-winded on them. I'm going to try to go fast. So, 1990, Kindergarten Cop. I don't really have too terribly much love for Kindergarten Cop, but it is a very fun 90s movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger. there's a lot of Arnold Schwarzenegger that I haven't seen that I need to catch up on. But of the Arnold Schwarzenegger that I've seen, this one's I'm not going to say one of my favorite favorites, but it's definitely one that I think is very cute and fun, and I don't know. I felt like it was at least worth noting at the 15 spot. And then The Rescuers Down Under. This is the sequel to The Rescuers. I do actually like the first Rescuers movie better, but there's definitely, I remember one of the things I remember about this movie is so many of the VHSs. Yes, for those of you who have never heard of VHS before, you put like, a big giant tape, and you might not even know what a tape is. A big giant tape into a thing called a VCR. You'd set, slide it in, and you'd watch a movie. But first, you'd have to rewind all the way back to the beginning. But at the beginning of all our VHS tapes, for a lot of movies, there was trailers for Rescuers Down Under, and I just remember like the crazy animation. It looked like all the vistas of Australian outback. And this movie truly is a gorgeously animated movie. Um, it's like way better animation than probably it deserves to have, but Disney definitely put a lot of work into that for that movie, and I really appreciate for that. It's not like super high up on my animation list, but it's at least worth noting in 1990, and I remember it as a little bit of a nostalgia piece for seeing the trailers for it so many times. Um, and then we get to Home Alone. I'm actually not the biggest fan of Home Alone, but you can't talk about the 90s without talking about Home Alone. And I have seen it, and I do like it enough, but it isn't like my super favorites. I'm also not like a huge Christmas movie fan, so that's maybe part of the reason why Home Alone is down lower. But yeah. Then we have Dances with Wolves. This is a movie I saw for the first time very recently. Some of you guys might remember from my alphabetizing list. That's when I watched this for my real regrets alphabetizing. And I really like Dances with Wolves. As I said there, I'm a sucker for this type of story, whether it's Avatar or Last Samurai or Dances with Wolves or um, well, a little bit Pocahontas, although I can see the faults in Pocahontas. But Dances with Wolves, I really enjoyed, and I liked how, Costner kind of embeds himself within the Sioux people, and yeah, I like the movie. And then we get Back to the Future 3. You can't talk about the 80s is dominated by Back to the Future movies, but the 90s has one of them right at the beginning. And Back to the Future 3 is very fun. It's not my favorite. I guess it is my least favorite of the three, but it is still very good. Um, it's also the one I've revisited the least amount of times, so I don't have quite as much nostalgia love for it, just because it's not one of the ones I rewatched a lot. So that's there. Joe versus the volcano I saw for the first time last year when I did a Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan trifecta of basically the Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan movies I have not seen. So I hadn't seen Sleepless in Seattle, I hadn't seen You've Got Mail, and I hadn't seen Joe versus the volcano. And I really like this movie a lot. I wish I could rate it higher than I did, but I do really enjoy this movie. Tom Hanks is very good in this, but Meg Ryan is especially amazing in this because she plays basically three different characters, and her hair is always changing, and her character's all like the way she acts is always changing. So I just love her um, playing those different roles within this movie. They're very distinct, and the style of this movie is really good too. It's everything is very dream sequency, sort of, and fantastical, and the imagery definitely matches that. So I really like Joe versus Volcano. Pretty Women, Pretty Woman. Oh, sorry, Pretty Woman. Like this isn't one that I'm super like. It's not like one of my favorites movies, but again, this is the 90s, and this is a pretty big movie in the 90s. and I like it. Julia Roberts is definitely enchanting in this movie, as she is in many others. Um, yeah, I like I like her in this. So I have this as my 9 spot. At my 8 spot, An Angel at My Table. So I did a Jane Campion um, watch through. I didn't quite get all the way through her filmography, um, but back when uh, uh, back when the Power of the Dog was at one point front runner for Best Picture at the Oscars. It was I definitely wanted to see more of Jane Campion because I also hadn't seen things like The Piano. So An Angel at My Table was one of her movies that I really enjoyed. It's an a biopic about a famous author, a poet, actually. And it's just this really crazy, sometimes tragic life story, but it all kind of turns out nice by the end. And I don't know. Uh, I really had a good time watching this movie. And then number 7, I have the Hunt for Red October. Sean Connery is such a blast to follow in this movie. This is a really great like suspense, you know, submarines sort of like spy war film. There's just so much like cat and mouse game stuff going on. Like he's trying to defect to the U.S. and uh, um, like kind of all the trust issues that are happening within the movie. And I honestly owe this a rewatch because it's been a very long time, but I do remember really enjoying this movie. Misery is a really good Stephen King adaptation. Um, I've only watched it a few times, but it's kind of undeniable that Kathy Bates is amazing in this, and James Caan also is really good. Um, and basically, the two playing off each other the whole movie is the movie, and they're really great in it. So yeah, and of course the scene where she hobbles him is one of the most iconic, uh, terrifying scenes, I guess, of any movie out there. So. Uh, I felt like it's worth noting at my number 6 of 1990. Number 5, I have Goodfellas. Um, yeah, 1990, you're going to notice that a lot of these are, uh, this may be my lowest year of the decade. And Goodfellas, I'm actually pretty much lower on than a lot of people, even though it's in my 5 spot for this year. I definitely appreciate all the filmmaking elements in this. The acting's pretty good within it. Definitely the cinematography and some of the editing of how they have long takes and um, just how they depict different things. I'm not really a Scorsese fan though, and I think that comes off here. I'm also not very much of a mob movie person, so Goodfellas just doesn't hit me quite like it does other people. But I do kind of recognize it as a very well made movie, and I at least give it credit for that. So I give it a 5. I give it at my 5 spot. Total Recall is I really love Paul Verhoeven movies. Um, and this one I really love. I mean, Total Recall is such a fun movie. One of my favorite from Arnold, and there's just such crazy imagery and character designs within this movie when they go to Mars. I just really love the world that they set up in Mars. That's my favorite part. Um, there are some silly things as the plot unfolds, but it also has one of the best twists of any movie I've seen. So like there's a lot to like about Total Recall. I'm sure nobody's going to argue with me on this one. Gremlins 2, The New Batch. I actually like this one better than the first Gremlins movie. Um, the first Gremlins movie is a really great, I guess, Christmas horror movie, you'd call it. But it's definitely a lighter horror movie where you got these little monsters running around wreaking havoc. And this one's even like much more a comedy. Uh, like people also die in this and get injured and whatever, and bad things happen. But these terrible creatures are pretty lovable. Um, of course, the brain gremlin in this one, the one that ends up talking, is really steals the show. He sings at the end, and there's just so much. There's just so much greatness in this Gremlins 2 movie. It's so fun. And another fun movie at number 2 is Tremors. Uh, this is a creature feature horror movie, but gosh, it's just so funny at the same time, and it's not that the horror is funny, but the characters within it are funny, and as they run away from these subterranean worms that are after them, uh, I just, Kevin Bacon and everybody else is just putting on such a show, and I just love the survival aspects of it too, of how they have to strategize to like um, get not be standing and running across open ground, and how the worms can't like pass through solid rock and whatnot, and they have to figure out the terrain and how to protect themselves. And there's just so much cool stuff in Tremors. It's definitely like I feel like it's beyond cult classic now because so many people have grabbed onto this movie and love it. It's also definitely was a movie growing up that was on TV a lot, and just I could like flip this on anytime, like go through a channel and be like, "Oh, hey, Tremors, let's settle in and watch this for a bit," or if not, watch it all the way through the rest of the way from where it was. So, Tremors is a really good movie. And my number one movie from 1990 is Edward Scissorhands. This is my favorite Tim Burton movie as well, by a good margin. I like Tim Burton a lot, at least the good Tim Burton a lot. There's a lot of Tim Burton to not like, of course. I think everybody agrees with that now, even Tim Burton fans. But this is definitely my favorite. This is also probably my favorite Danny Elfman score. Winona Ryder is so amazing in this movie to go along with the music, and especially in that the ice sculpture scene where the snow is falling around her, and then Johnny Depp is really good as Edward Scissorhands, and I love how like they have this like Tim Burton created this weird like suburban like this very suburban and satire uh, directly adjacent to this gothic horror mansion that's up on the hill, and it's like this blend of gothic horror with like 90s like suburban life. It's really interesting. Actually, really, it's homaging the 1950s, so like basically 50s suburbia mi- meeting gothic horror. It's just it's a not something you'd think would mesh well together, but I definitely think Edward Scissorhands does. It's one of my favorite movies in general, let alone in the 90s. All right, let's move on to 1991. 1991, I also have 15 movies to talk about. At number 15, we have The Fisher King with Jeff Bridges and Robin Williams. This is a movie I saw rather late. I did not grow up with this movie. This is on my real regrets list for a long time. I saw it. I feel like I owe it a rewatch too. I don't know if I was distracted or whatever, but I wasn't feeling this movie as much as I thought I would. But you can't deny that Robin Williams' performance is really something special in this, and even Jeff Bridges' performance too, in trying to work off that and kind of um, start to go on this quest with him is really an interesting story. Um, I think, yeah, I definitely think I need to rewatch this and see how much higher this can go up my 90s lists, my 1991 list. But right now it's at 15. Hot Shots. I definitely like Hot Shots Part 2 more. Um, as you'll see later in this list, in these lists, but I really love the spoof comedy of Hot Shots. There are great jokes in it. I know, you know, the Charlie Sheen of it all doesn't age well, probably, but the jokes in this are really funny, and I really like it as a spoof comedy. And of course, you guys know I love Airplane, and it definitely has a lot of, you know, it's obviously it's related to the people who created Airplane, so I definitely have that carryover effect, I think. And then Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey. This is the sequel to Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. This is really underrated. I um, don't hear people talk about this one as much, but I really loved this sequel. I especially love, obviously, the sequence where they're playing games with death to try to win their way, and instead of playing chess like in the Seventh Seal, they play all these like '90s like wonderful board games and Twister and Battleship and all the things I grew up with, and it's that whole section was wonderful. And then the most recent Bill and Ted that came out, we get Death to come back, and I just love William Sadler as Death, both in this movie and then when he came back and um, Face the Music, the newest one that came out. But yeah, I like Bill and Ted, period, and I definitely like Bogus Journey as well. So it's at my 13. Number 12 is The Addams Family. Um, yeah, I mean, this is the best version of The Addams Family still. Like, Christina Ricci is the all-time Wednesday, even though Jenna Ortega tried to give her a run for her money on the Netflix show this year. Um, even though they were also acting in the same scene together in that show, which is pretty cool. But you can't beat Wednesday Addams doing her thing in this. And there's just so many great Addams Family hijinks in this movie. So yeah, it's at my number 12. And then I have Star Trek, The Undiscovered Country at number 11. I do love Star Trek. I became a Star Trek fan later in life. Um, it was something I didn't grow up with, but I came to in college, and I watched through all of the series and the movies. This is my third favorite Star Trek movie, I think. Um, and while I really love the shows, the movies aren't quite. I don't hold quite in as high a regard. So you'll see that some of the Star Trek movies aren't like super high in my top tens, but this one almost approaches it. So it's at my 11 for the 1991, a year I like a lot. Uh, I have a soft spot for Hudson Hawk. I know lots of people consider this to be a really bad movie, but I think maybe this is a so bad it's good movie for me, if that's such a thing. But I have so much fun with Bruce Willis in this. He's got so much life and energy and fun in it. I'm not always crazy with the villains, but it kind of works that they're so grating because you don't like them. So you're rooting for Hudson Hawk even more. So that works for me. And I really love the soundtrack in this movie. So all the, Earth, Wind, and Fire songs that he uh, sings along to in this movie is really fun. Pushing Hands is one of Ang Lee's early films. It's about a aging Tai Chi master who's living in the United States, and he's trying to come to terms with like his role within living in the U.S. and getting older and having a family and on dating. And there's so much great stuff with this character. It's such a lovely meditative movie about like relationships and um, like aging, but also just kind of a sense of serenity as like just the way he cares about Tai Chi and this routine and um, all these things. And then you do get a big standoff fight. So there's some action in this movie too, where he gets to show off his Tai Chi skills and just how much of a master he is, and it's so impressive. Um, yeah, I really like Pushing Hands. It's an underrated movie that really underrated, underseen movie from Ang Lee. He's one of my favorite directors, and definitely Pushing Hands is one of my top ones from him. So it's my number 9, 981. Number 8 is Father of the Bride. Like Steve Martin is a comedy genius. I didn't. This was a real regret to remedy for a long time for me. I think I watched this for the first time last February. For or some February in recent years where I was trying to go through rom-com movies, of real regrets, some undiscovered love, I like to call it. Um, and Father of the Bride was on there. But I really love this comedy, and Father of the Bride Part 2 as well. Then we have Catherine Bigelow's Point Break. This is such a ridiculous movie, but it's so much fun, and it's so 90s. And Keanu Reeves and Patrick Swayze playing off of each other is just the best bromance ever. Um, yeah, I really like Point Break. The surfing scenes are amazingly shot. Um, the shooting the guns into the air are incredibly stupid but wonderful. Um, yeah, there's so much great stuff to love. I can't remember where this ranks in my Catherine Bigelow, but it's definitely in my probably top one or two for her. Um, then we go to Thelma and Louise. Again, we're getting through a run of like movies I hadn't seen until later that were real regrets for a long time. Thelma and Louise. I can't remember when I watched it, but I watched it for the first time for some reason within a year, probably a year or so. Um, but Thelma and Louise is just a great movie. I love Gina Davis in this movie and Susan Sarandon and how they are trying to escape their lives from these terrible men and just want to leave men in the dust. But Gina Davis is a little bit more reluctant, but she definitely wants to do it too, especially when she's screwed over one last time by a guy. And yes, Brad Pitt is in this, looking very nice in one of his early roles, and I know all the ladies love it. And honestly, it's a fun section of the movie that he's in it for it. So yeah, Thelma and Louise is really cool. It's a great ending, one of the best endings in movie history. Um, Thelma and Louise driving off into the sunset, so to speak. And yeah, so and number 5, I have The Silence of the Lambs. I know lots of people have this one higher up. I think this is an amazing movie. This is still a 4.5-star movie for me, but we're just getting into my favorites of 91 now. And I love everybody in this movie. Hannibal Lecter as, or sorry, Anthony Hopkins as Hannibal Lecter, and oh my god. Okay, and I love everybody in this. Where you have Anthony Hopkins, of course, as Hannibal Lecter, and you have Jodie Foster as Clarice. You have the wonderful lines of like fava beans and a nice Chianti. All of the great best Hannibal Lecter lines are in this movie. I like Red Dragon a lot too. I think I'm probably not supposed to say that, but I like that movie. Um, and I really like this movie. This movie, like as I was making these lists, this movie started up much higher, but then as I realized I was going through other movies, I was like, well, yeah, I like this movie better. I like this movie better. I just have a little bit more love for some of these other ones than The Silence of the Lambs, so that's why it's at 5 instead of higher. But it's an incredible movie. There's no denying that. Another incredible movie is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. This actually is probably my fourth favorite, maybe my fourth favorite James Cameron, though, which sounds low, but um, I'm a much bigger fan of the first Terminator movie, and I am an Avatar stan, and Avatar is actually my favorite James Cameron movie. Yes, I know everybody's gonna scream and yell at me, but I love Avatar. I love returning to Avatar with the new one, with Pandora with the new one. So I just have a soft spot for that. And Terminator 2, I also really love. It's great seeing Arnold as the Terminator as a sidekick instead of the unstoppable force bad guy. Um, there's so many great of course, this is where Arnold gets some of his most iconic one-liners, and it's got so much good stuff to love in this. And yeah, Terminator 2 is great. I do owe this one a rewatch because it's been a really, really long time since I've seen it. Maybe it could be higher, but as you'll see, some of the ones above this are pretty great movies too. Number 3 is Beauty and the Beast. Not much to say here. This is one of Disney's best of the Disney Renaissance. We're talking about the 90s. We're in the Disney Renaissance now, and Beauty and the Beast is one of the best ones of that. Um, like Belle is one of the best Disney princesses because she just has much more of a well-rounded character. Lots of people criticize the story for like her being, captured and then falling along with her captor and whatever. But whatever. Um, Beauty and the Beast is lovely. It's wonderfully animated. It's got some of the best songs in uh, Disney animation. Period. Yeah. Uh, I don't think I really need to convince you guys on why Beauty and the Beast is so high up. Number two, I have Boys in the Hood. Um, it took me a very, very long time to see this movie, um, but I knew I had to. And this is a very powerful movie. There's some great like friendships of and like just how it depicts the community. Um, within this movie and how the characters kind of start out as young kids and then grow up. Some of them, have been in jail and um, have had other issues going on, and it's just kind of how they're navigating now adulthood or early adulthood and kind of trying to make life work for them. And it definitely has a tragic end, as many people know. It's just got just such a horrible like way things devolve. Um, it's a really hard movie to watch, but a really great one as well. It's my number two of 1991, and number one is one of my favorite movies ever. I have such a soft spot for this. This is definitely one of my nostalgia faves that I just have this, I guess, rose-colored nostalgia glasses for. But I genuinely think this movie is awesome. It's my favorite Spielberg. It's one of my maybe my favorite Robin Williams movie as well. Uh, I there's I could do a whole episode on Hook, and maybe I will at some point. Um, this is probably my favorite Captain Hook as well within this movie. Um, Lots of people give this movie shit, and I don't care. Rufio is amazing. The production design. This is one of my favorite production design movies I've ever seen. Just the sets of like the ships, the pirate ships, kind of how they're all kind of intermingled together, and especially the final fight where they have all the kids in their costumes and their paint guns and peanut shooters and all that stuff kind of mixed in with already the production design aesthetic of like just the sets themselves. There's just so much great stuff in Hook that I love, and John Williams' score also just kind of puts icing on the cake as well. So that's my 1991. Moving on to 1992, my number one is Disney's Aladdin, the animated version from 1992, obviously. So Robin Williams' Genie is like, yeah, everything for this movie. Jafar is one of the best Disney villains. Jasmine is probably my favorite Disney princess. Um, that might be just because yeah, she's the one I'm most attracted to. But I also just really love how strong-willed she is in the movie. I love that she has a pet tiger. That's pretty cool. I know that's maybe a shallow reason, but I just really like Aladdin and how this story works, and uh, you know, Genie and Aladdin playing off each other, and Iago is a really great sidekick villain. Yeah, this movie is one of my favorites for sure. Um, I guess I'm going from one down to the bottom this time. Let's just keep going. So number two for 1982 is A League of Their Own. This is one of the best sports movies ever. Um, all the Everybody in this movie is acting their uh, you know, uh, baseball skirts off. I guess you could say. Um, they they I mean there's just so much great stuff in here. Um, it's one of the most powerful movies about kind of women kind of finding a place they didn't used to be allowed to be a part of, and just having so much fun with that, and like claiming it for their own, and being entertaining about it and skilled, and uh, it's just such a powerful movie. I don't think anybody's going to argue with me on that one. Number three is one of my nostalgia faves. This is probably my most rewatched movie ever. Definitely one of them, and that's Fern Gully. Um, can you feel its pain? Yeah, that all that stuff. I said I was a mark for movies like Avatar and Dances with Wolves, and I forgot to mention Fern Gully, but Fern Gully was definitely the first one of those that I fell in love with when I was very little, and then I watched it many, many, many times as I was growing up. Um, this is one of my nostalgia faves. When I rewatch it as an adult, I do see it a little bit more of its faults, which is why it's at my three and not higher. Yeah, I know Aladdin and A League of Their Own is higher than that, and how could I put that above them? But hey, I really have a lot of powerful nostalgia for a lot of these movies, as I do with The Mighty Ducks. This is the first one at my number four spot. Um, I love D2 more, as you guys will see. I think that's the ultimate Mighty Ducks movie. However, the original The Mighty Ducks is great. Quack, 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 duck, Mr. Ducksworth. That's such a great scene. Um just the origins of all the ducks fly together, the flying V, and the original core group of the Mighty Ducks that, yes, they're a big part of D2 when they bring in the other cast members and the Bash Brothers and things like that. But, you know, these are the roots of Charlie Conway and Adam Banks and uh, all the other wonderful group of youth hockey, Minnesota hockey players that, yeah, I love them. So that's number four. Number five is Glengarry Glen Ross. I watched this for alphabetizing, and it was one of my favorite movies of the alphabetizing list. It's just one of those movies um, where the dialogue is so pitch perfect. It's just even though I don't care anything about sales or leads, and this movie talks about leads 200 million times. They make me care about it, and they make it interesting. Uh, and yeah, it's a really well-made movie. Number six, The Muppets Christmas Carol. Uh, this is my favorite version of the Christmas Carol story. Closely the Disney Mickey Mouse one that's much shorter, it's like 45 minutes or whatever, is a very close second. But I do really love the Muppets Christmas Carol more. Michael Caine as Scrooge is really solid, especially when he's playing off the Muppets. And that's just so much fun. How can you like go wrong with Muppets doing stuff? And this is probably my favorite Muppets movie. Either the first Muppet movie or this one would be my favorite Muppet movies. But this one definitely has a lot of great stuff in it. Then we have Quentin Tarantino's Reservoir Dogs at number seven. This is my second favorite or third favorite Quentin Tarantino movie. I can't remember, but if you guys want to dive very deep down my letterbox list. I have a bunch of directors' filmographies, and there is a Quentin Tarantino one, uh, and Reservoir Dogs should be on there. But I really like that opening scene of this movie. Is lots of people praise, and I definitely feel like it's um, one of Tarantino's best scenes, and he has some great scenes in his movies. Um, I just like the different character. I also like how they tell the story kind of out of order, and kind of like you're learning um like the different colored code names people's stories as you go along. Um and it's just really well done, kind of like how they hide information until later, and then you eventually figure it out, and shit goes uh shit hits a fan. And yeah, there's there's a lot of fun stuff in Reservoir Dogs. Lots of very interesting, like lots of Quentin Tarantino's staples that runs with for the rest of his um, original movies. And then we have Unforgiven. This was a movie that was on my real regrets list for a long, 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 long time, and I finally got to it I think it was last year sometime, and uh, I really think this is a great movie. Uh, I don't know. There, Clint Eastwood in it is really solid, but Gene Hackman is one of the best villains. He plays really good Western villains for sure, but in Unforgiven, he is the most despicable. Um, and then Morgan Freeman is in this to top to like just to make it even better. So there's a lot of great things in Unforgiven. I see why so many people have been praising it for so long. I just feel bad that it's I finally got around to it. It took me so long to get around to it. Number 9 is Batman Returns. Um, this is one of my favorite Batman movies. Um, and I like it better than Batman 89 slightly. I just really like I just like the Catwoman, Penguin, and everything, all the collective kind of villains and storylines going on in this movie, and the Tim Burton aesthetic is even stronger in this movie. So I really like that about Batman Returns. So it's number 9. Number 10 is A Few Good Men. Um, uh, you can't handle the truth. Basically, it's all about that scene, that line. It's a really good legal drama. Um, and A Few Good Men is my number 10 of 1992. And then we have Beethoven, which is a nostalgia favorite of mine. I watched this movie a lot growing up. We definitely had the VHS and rewound it many, many times, and then press play it again. Uh, yeah. Um, Beethoven is very fun. You'll see another famous 90s dog later in these lists, but Beethoven is definitely a special little dog for me, but not quite as important as some other ones. And then we have Malcolm X. This is a really amazing Malcolm X biopic. It's very long, um, and Denzel Washington is great as Malcolm X. I haven't seen it in a very long time. It's a very well made biopic, but there's a lot of movies in this year that I love that I just have much more of a tie to, much more love for, and then so this one's just a little bit lower than everything else. I love the Lethal Weapon series, and I really enjoy Lethal Weapon 3. This maybe should be above Malcolm X, but I think I do give this 3.5 stars instead of 4 stars, which is the difference. Lethal Weapon 3 is a slight step down from 1 and 2. Um, so yeah, but I really like the addition of Rene Russo into the franchise in this movie. She definitely has a great dynamic with Mel Gibson. That's pretty much what Lethal Weapon 3 is all about. The villains are pretty forgettable in this one, compared to 1 and 2. Yeah. Then we have 14, Army of Darkness. I think this is my favorite Evil Dead movie, just because I have more fun with this one. They really lean into it. It's very different than the other two. It's like not even the same thing, but I like the comedy of this better. I like Ash in it better. And as far as comedic Ash goes, I definitely like this better than Evil Dead 2. That got a little too goofy in certain ways in that one that this one sort of does, but it leans into it better, I felt like. And I also just like the epic kind of fantasy scale going back in time of this movie. It's fun. And then White Men Can't Jump is a pretty fun like street basketball movie about gambling addiction and um, um, people trying to qualify for Jeopardy and lots of funny things. And it's an iconic 90s movie for sure. Wesley Snipes and Woody Harrelson are so great at playing off each other. Uh, Yeah, it's an underrated movie. I don't even know if it's an underrated movie, but I think it deserves as much. Yeah, I think it deserves a lot of praise, and I enjoy it. To my number 15 of 1992. All right, we're on to 1993. I'm going to go back in the correct order this time. Number 12, Robin Hood Men in Tights. This is really great Mel Gibson spoof comedy on Robin Hood, and Carrie Elwes is one of my favorite Robin Hoods there is. The comedy in this is hilarious. Um, Again, some Mel Brooks humor maybe doesn't age as well, but lots of people still seem to have love for Mel Brooks comedies, and Robin Hood Men in Tights is one of those that I still really enjoy. And as I said before, Hot Shots Part 2, I love even better than Hot Shots. The first one, uh, I'm not really sure why. Maybe I like it more, but I just think the jokes are better. I really love the kill count joke in this movie. Um, I don't know. And I think the romance within this one works better than the first one, I guess. I don't know. Um, but I just remember laughing at this more than I remember laughing at the first Hot Shots. So yeah. And I like it, and I definitely think it's a little bit funnier than Robin Hood and Men in Tights. Then we get number 10, another comedy. Number 10, Groundhog Day. Many people probably would have this much higher up, and I still think this is an amazing comedy. I just really love this year of 1993. As you guys can see, all the good ones above. I have a lot of nostalgia love for a lot of these movies coming up. I don't have as much nostalgia love for Groundhog Day, but it's definitely a classic 90s movie. Uh, you know, people call time loop movies like the Groundhog, like an homage to Groundhog Day, and like basically it kind of made famous or made popular time loop movies, and that's not always my favorite gimmick, but there's a lot of really good ones, and Groundhog Day started that. And Bill Murray, this is one of Bill Murray's best movies, best performances as well. Cool Runnings is another amazing comedy. The very fictionalized biopic, comedy biopic from Disney of the Jamaican bobsled team. Uh, there are so many great, I guess, memes you can pull from this movie. Uh, the Sanka You Dead, uh, all those gifs. I love posting those. It just makes me giggle. Basically, that's what this movie is about. It just makes me giggle the whole time at these guys. And there's just so much heart to it too, because legitimately they're trying to, qualify and place and whatever in the Winter Olympics. Kind of this wonderful underdog story, and who doesn't love an underdog story? And Cool Runnings definitely has a great one. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of people who have 90s love, and other people who found it after love this movie too. Uh, t- this is The Nightmare Before Christmas is next on my list, number 8. This is an amazing stop motion animation. Tim Burton produced, Henry Selick directed. Um, I mean, this is a very popular movie. I really love this movie. There's just, some other ones I like better on here. Um, but there's no denying that Jack Skellington is an amazing character. This is a great Halloween movie and a great Christmas movie. Um, it's just so many things in one, and it's wonderful. So it's my number 8 of 1993, one of my favorite years of the 90s. Rookie of the Year is a baseball movie that is really, really dumb, honestly. It's about a young kid who, after falling on his arm and the tendons get really tight or whatever, he's able to wind up his arm and throw the fastest fastball you've ever seen. Uh, and he gets recruited by the Chicago Cubs, and nobody can say his name because his name is Henry Rowan Gardner, so they call him Henry Rowanfurter or Hooten Wadzer. That, I don't know. There's a running bit. It's funny. And you also have Gary Busey as Chet Stedman, who is this aging pitcher who's kind of the mentor figure for Henry on the team. He was like his favorite player kind of growing up, and yeah, and he has a really great arc in this movie. And I know that's crazy to say about Gary Busey after how things have kind of spiraled for him over the years, but he had some fun movies in the 90s, including, Point Break and Rookie of the Year. Those are definitely some of my favorite movies. So, hey, like done some good things. Schindler's List is an amazing Steven Spielberg movie. The craft is impeccable. The scene with the girl in the red dress is one of the best sequences in movie history. Um, Again, the only reason why this is lower on this list is because I just have more love for some of the other ones. Schindler's List is a very hard watch. It's got great performances. It's got great cinematography. It's got great so many things. It's one of Spielberg's best for sure. But I just like some of the other ones so much better. They're definitely a lot easier to watch than Schindler's List. That probably helps. So number 5, we have Mrs. Doubtfire. While I said Hook is my favorite Robin Williams movie, I think between this and his voiceover work as Aladdin, uh, as Genie in Aladdin, uh, this is my favorite acting performance from him. I know he has a lot of amazing stuff. And he is one of my favorite actors, probably my favorite actor, and I just love what he's doing in this movie. It's like perfection, really. And I also never understood quite one of the things about this movie. I've never quite understood why he's being blackballed so much by his ex-wife, and why he's like considered so toxic that like he has to have this crazy arrangement to see his kids. It does not make sense whatsoever, but it creates the premise for the movie so that we can have these crazy hijinks of him dressing up as Euphigenia Doubtfire, and it's an amazing movie. Yeah, Tombstone is. These two movies, 4 and 5, are very close, but Tombstone, it gets a slight bump ahead. For me, this comes down to Doc Holliday. This is really about one of my favorite characters in movies, period. Uh, Val Kilmer as Doc Holliday is one of my favorite characters in movie history. I'll be your Huckleberry is one of my favorite lines. Every time he says it in the movie, it's great. Uh, Maybe it's silly to raise a movie up as high for one character, but he is so damn good in this movie, and I love it. So, and then one of my all-time great nostalgia faves is Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey. We got Shadow, Chance, and Sassy trying to make it home. Well, they escape the people that were pet sitting them, and then they have to try to walk cross country, like trek cross country through the Rocky Mountains to get back home to where they came from. It's a crazy setup. But it's amazing. The adventures they go on are great. The voiceover work for these pets is very good, even though obviously their mouths don't move. So that maybe that's a little weird, but I really like, especially for Shadow and Chance. No, I mean really all three of them. The voiceover work is great. And of course, the scene of Shadow at the end coming over that hill is like one of the best. Like your heart was like just about to die because you didn't think he was going to make it, and yeah, it's it's a it's a rush when he comes over that hill, that's for sure. Number 2, again, another one of my favorite nostalgia movies, The Sandlot. It's an amazing baseball movie. It's an amazing coming of age movie. It's maybe it's got a lot of silly boys being boys stuff in it, and that's never really been something I've cared much about. But for some reason, in The Sandlot, I love it. I love all the stuff in this. I guess the Wendy Peppercorn stuff definitely is more problematic as years goes on. But it's young boys having a crush. I don't know. Yeah, but this movie is so much fun. And there's so many lines to take away this from me. Like, "You're killing me, Smalls" is definitely a thing I say a lot, um, and Benny the Jet Rodriguez is just one of the best like kid iconic characters like uh, ever. I like he's amazing, and his chase at the like his chase scene at the end in his PF Flyers is great. I love The Sandlot. This I almost was able to put this above Jurassic Park and some other things, but I was able to control myself at least a little bit on this nostalgia love. And then I have Jurassic Park, and I think this is probably lots of people's 1993 favorite. It's a 5-star movie. I think it's a perfect movie. Um, it's my, well, it's not my favorite uh, Spielberg movie just because I love Hook so much, but it's definitely, I guess, if I was to say Hook isn't a legitimate favorite, I think it's a legitimate favorite. But Jurassic Park is definitely right up there with it. It's like, if Hook is 1A, Jurassic Park is 1B. Uh, I don't think I really have to explain this. Jurassic Park is amazing. Just the mastery of the reaction shot is one of Spielberg's like greatest qualities, and Jurassic Park is absolutely the movie where he gets to show it off the most. All right, we get to the famous year of 1994. This is considered one of the best years in movie history. There's just such a great run of some of like very highly considered movies, and I like to throw a wrench in things and have some weird things slotted in here and some other ones that people love a lot that are a little bit lower. Um, but I do have um, several movies I want to talk about. Number 14, Clerks. Um, I am not a big, I mean, I haven't seen enough Kevin Smith movies, but I'm not like a huge Kevin Smith fan. But Clerks is definitely an iconic movie from the 90s, an iconic movie period as far as like independent film and like kind of this underdog story of, Kevin Smith making this movie and like getting famous out of it and like making a career from this movie that really is pretty simplistic and but it's a good comedy. um, it's well made, well written, well acted. uh, it's just not one that I have a ton of like personal fave love for. I think I've only seen it once or twice. So yeah, anyway, number 13 is Ace Ventura Pet Detective, 1994. One of Jim Carrey's best characters is Ace Ventura. Um, these movies are pretty much big dumb fun. Jim Carrey's specialty. I like other Jim Carrey movies better, as you can see just in this one year. Um, but Ace Ventura definitely has to be recognized at least a little bit when we're talking about 1994 and 1990s. Then we have the Flintstones movie. Yes, I know. I This is definitely a nostalgia favorite. We have the VHS. We watched it many, many times. This isn't. I suppose there's a lot of flaws in this movie, but I have a lot of fun with John. But of course, you have John Goodman as Fred Flintstone and Rick Moranis as Barney Rubble, and there's a crazy plot about turn change in management at the quarry that Fred Flintstone works at. Halle Berry is like a femme fatale antagonist, basically, although she eventually kind of comes around to the right side. But uh, I think the Halle Berry factor and being a young boy had something to do with it. It's certainly on rewatches as I was getting uh, even later in the 90s when I was watching this movie, probably definitely had even more of a factor. But number 11 is John Carpenter's In the Mouth of Madness. This is a very cool movie from him. Like basically like an author's like stuff comes to life, and um, people getting trapped within that world, and uh, Sam Neill's in it and dealing with it all. It's pretty cool. Uh, that's what this movie is. It's cool, and has amazing imagery. Some of the things that John Carpenter is best at is all in this movie. So then at number 10, we have Ed Wood, another Tim Burton movie. I don't like Ed Wood quite as much as a lot of other people. Some people, this is their favorite Tim Burton movie, and they think it's one of the best movies ever. I just really appreciate it. I think the biggest thing here is Johnny Depp's performance is really good yeah, is really good in this movie. I do also like the factor of like I like there's been a lot of movies like this that have come out about like crazed filmmakers that have made like these very terrible, famously terrible movies, and just like kind of the delusional mentality that they had as a director, but that also makes them somewhat an iconic like visionary at the same time. It's interesting, but that's one of the reasons why Ed Wood is an interesting movie. So I put it at my 10 for 1994. Number 9 is Jim Carrey in The Mask. This is an amazing Jim Carrey comedy. He gets to literally wear so many faces in this movie, and not just the green one, but this mask character transforms a million times, and there's some great references to so many things within this movie. Cameron Diaz is maybe not doing her best acting work, but she's a pretty enjoyable, I guess, damsel in distress in this movie. Um, yeah, but The Mask is fun. That's what it's supposed to be, and that's what it is. Also, what's supposed to be fun, but a little bit more action-packed and a little bit more tense, and I don't know, not really that serious, but is Speed, about the bus being stuck at going very fast and they can't go below a certain speed. And yeah, Sandra Bullock is driving this bus, and Keanu Reeves is trying to save the day and like stop the uh, um, Dennis Hopper from blowing up the bus. And yeah, there's a lot of crazy stuff in Speed, but it's a great action movie. It's definitely like epitome of 90s action for sure. And there's good reason I like the movie a lot. I also like the Santa Claus at number 7, and with the Christmas coming up this weekend, I this is one of my favorite Christmas movies. Like I'm not a huge Christmas movie fan, so it doesn't necessarily say a lot. And there's definitely movies I like better than this, but Tim Allen as like the reluctant new Santa is a really great plot line. I just like how the North Pole works here. I like the guy from Numbers, David David Krumholtz, as the lead elf Bernard. He's very funny in this, and there's a lot of weird stuff in the Santa Claus, but I enjoy the Santa Claus a lot. Number 6 is Pulp Fiction. People probably would expect that to be up a little bit higher, but uh, I like some other Quentin Tarantino movies better than this one. And while I appreciate the storytelling style in this movie, the kind of non-linear narrative within Pulp Fiction is um, doesn't 100% win me over in this movie, but all the performances and little vignettes within Pulp Fiction are really cool. I think John Travolta and and Samuel L. Jackson, obviously their stuff is some of the best in the movie. Samuel L. Jackson's speeches are great, and of course Quentin Tarantino is great at writing a good speech, and he knows how to get actors to deliver those monologues as well. And Uma Thurman is great in this movie too. Uh, uh, yeah, we were showing off a lot of her feet in the dance scenes, but that's how Tarantino rolls. But she is a really great character, um, very dynamic within this movie. Then we have Leon the Professional. This was Nicole Kidman's uh, debut, feature film debut, but she's amazing in it. And Jean Reno is amazing as Leon, who's an assassin, and basically he's sort of like reluctantly teaching Natalie Portman's characters about his life and his ways of his whatever, because Gary Oldman's on their path or whatever. It's been a while since I've seen this movie, but I know I really love it, and it's my number 5 of 1994. A movie I've definitely seen many, many times is Forrest Gump. I love Forrest Gump probably way more than I should. This is starting to be a movie that I guiltily love, um, because there's some things about, obviously, Tom Hanks as Forrest Gump that perhaps doesn't age very well, but gosh, it's such a lovable character, and I just love the whole like feather floating through life analogy of this movie, and just like how he touches all these moments in history. And I've talked about how I love kind of dancing through history within movies, and Forrest Gump, it does a really amazing job of doing that. It's an epic movie, and I think it's epic. So, um, D2 The Mighty Ducks, it's my favorite Mighty Ducks movie. I just love the added characters to it from around the United States. Obviously, the formation of the Bash Brothers is the highlight of this. It is the thing that sets it apart. But I just love the dynamic once they all come together too. Also, some of the most creative, like silly hockey play scenes are in this movie. I love the adding like the figure skaters getting to like do tricks and then being able to score goals, and uh like the whole storyline with Goldberg having to like the goalie controversy competition. Um there's just really wonderful things in this movie, both as a sports movie, but also as a coming of age movie, and just like continuing the greatness of the Mighty Ducks franchise. And I think it's actually the best one. So, and then number 2 is The Shawshank Redemption. This is, for some people, this is one of the best movies ever made, or one of their favorites, at least. However they want to say it. Morgan Freeman is amazing in this, and Tim Robbins is even better, which is maybe a little bit offensive because Morgan Freeman is so good in this movie, but this is amazing prison drama. I love prison dramas. That's probably a weird thing to say, but whenever there's a prison drama, I seem to love it. And Shawshank Redemption is definitely one of those. Number 1, we have The Lion King. Um, I This is one of my favorite movies ever. One of my favorite animated movies, like period. I think it's just number 2 behind Inside Out as my favorite anime movies. Uh, and it's an all-time classic. Like the Elton John songs in this movie are really great. The actual score and the singing choirs that go along with this is great. The animation is wonderful. Great characters like Mufasa. James Earl Jones is Mufasa. Like Scar is one of the best Disney villains as well. Simba, both young Simba and older Simba, really good. Timon and Pumbaa. Uh, Gosh, and just the opening Circle of Life scene is one of my favorite animated scenes there is. So yeah, that's my number one of 1994. All right, 1995. This one I have 12. Okay, so at number 12, Apollo, which I feel like I should bring up another movie so it can be at spot 13, but that would be a little disingenuous, I guess. Apollo 13 is a really great, iconic 90s movie. I don't love it quite as much as some other ones, so it's my number 12. But Tom Hanks's performance in this is really good. Really, the whole cast is really good. It's a great people working together to problem solve and through this kind of space mission. It's really compelling. So yeah, Apollo 13 is a really good movie. Die Hard with a Vengeance is my second favorite Die Hard movie. I don't know if that's saying a lot, but definitely Jeremy Irons as the villain in this is really cool with the riddles and everything. But then also, Bruce Willis gets a sidekick of but also Bruce Willis gets a sidekick of Samuel L. Jackson to go along with it, and adds to the fun. So Die Hard with Vengeance is a cool movie, a very cool action movie, part of the Die Hard franchise. And then number 10, we have Friday. I didn't see this movie until last February. As a binging blind spots in black cinema, and I really love this comedy. I love Chris Tucker in this movie. I like Chris Tucker in a lot of things, as you'll see as we go through the 90s. But I'd never seen this one before, and Chris Tucker's character is so much fun. Ice Cube's so much fun. I just love how they're just like hanging around. It's just a movie where they're hanging around, making jokes. There are some like they get up to some mischief and some things that are a little bit more serious happen, but ultimately it stays pretty lighthearted and is just like this one day. Uh, yeah, it's really cool, kind of being almost like this slice of life kind of comedy of life in their community. So number 9, we have Clueless. This is an amazing comedy. Alicia Silverstone is such a great is doing such a great job in this movie at the center. Really, this movie is all about her, her and her performance in this character. Just obviously, this is a retelling of the Jane Austen story of Emma, but in the most 90s amazing way possible. And I don't know. There's a lot of people who have love for this movie, of course, and a lot of people who have more love for it than me, but I still really enjoy it. It's my number 9 of 1995. Number 8 is Michael Mann's Heat. It took me a while to watch this, but I did watch this when I went through all the Michael Mann, yeah, all the Michael Mann, almost all the Michael Mann movies, and definitely the things that people love about this movie, I recognize as being pretty amazing. Definitely the showdown between Pacino and De Niro in the finale, the climax at the airports with the airplane lights flying over and the trying to like take cover from each other. It's an amazing sequence, but before that, the best sequence is the gunfight in the street. The sound design in that scene, people talk about this all the time, but like I don't. There's not been a shootout scene that's shot quite like that, or has the sound design of the like what the shots sound like firing through the street, like it does in Heat. It's amazing. Then we have number 7, Mortal Kombat. Hopefully this video doesn't get taken down for that. Probably not, because that was not a very good impression. But Mortal Kombat is amazing. It's not just about the opening song, but that's a big part. This is a pretty stupid movie, but it's supposed to be. Uh, like video game movies get crap, and there's a reason for it. And maybe this movie is why people think that. But honestly, this is one of the better ones. This leans into the fun. I think it knows full well how cheesy it is, and I love the '90s cheese of it all. '90s cheese is one of the best things ever. And in Mortal Kombat, it's great. Um, yeah, this movie's fun. It's got good fight scenes, but some pretty crazy, ridiculous fight scenes, but they're fun. Then we have a very different movie. Leaving Las Vegas is one of the most stone cold bummer movies ever made, but I think it's Nicolas Cage's best performance ever. Um, it's so hard to watch. What I think was underrated, though, as much credit as Nicolas Cage gets for that movie, is Elizabeth Shue within the movie is nearly as impressive. Uh, the two of them working together in this movie and the relationship as he's trying to drink himself to death is, gosh, it's such a tough movie, um, but really, really good. At number 5, Before Sunrise, the first of the Before trilogy. Uh, This took me a very long time to watch any of the Before movies. Actually, for a long time, I didn't even know any of them existed. That was, I, d- I don't know why, but as I got more into movies and started to get into, I don't know, maybe film Twitter world, film review world, or whatever, people kept bringing up the Before trilogy, and I was like, what is this? And it's like this, you know, Linklater experiment of like making a movie every 9 years, telling this love story. And Before Sunrise was the first one. I just love them walking around the streets of Prague. I believe that's right. Vienna. Shit. Um, Fuck. Okay. But I just really love this movie for them wandering around and having um, various conversations and falling in love in Vienna. Um, what I love about it though too is it's not like because it's at a weird time of day, they're not like hitting all the biggest sites of Vienna. They are like it's kind of like the off the beaten trail kind of like tourism sort of stuff that they're doing. They're just kind of ambling around, seeing what shows up, seeing what seems interesting, and I just love that. I grew up. I was lucky enough to have the chance in middle school to travel through Europe a lot, and that's one of the best things about traveling is just kind of being able to be there and experience things. You don't. It's not even necessarily about seeing the sights, but just like being in a different place and experiencing that. And while this is a lot about their relationship, it's also about just them experiencing this amazing adventure together. So. And then number 4 is Seven. Uh, my favorite David Fincher movie. I just did a David Fincher series, as you guys who watch the show know. Um, this is my favorite one. Uh, it's just a really great crime procedural drama, serial killer. The production design of the crime scenes is amazing. The way they profile to get the track the case. Kevin Spacey in the final act is yeah one of his best acting jobs. I know we're not supposed to talk about it anymore, but um, yeah, this was a very good year for him. And then we go to number 3, Jumanji. Um, you guys might be like rolling your eyes at me for having Jumanji above 7 and Before Sunrise at the very least. Uh, some of you might be rolling your eyes at having it above Heat or Clueless or Friday. Sorry. I love Jumanji. Again, I have a lot of love for Robin Williams. There's a lot of nostalgic Robin Williams movies growing up, but I love this movie about this cursed board game that basically ruins this kid's life, and then Bonnie Hunt, and when she's older, gets brought back into the game by these new kids, but featuring Kirsten Dunst, little Kirsten Dunst in this movie. That they need to play through the game to try to free everybody and get to the end and solve our problems with daddy issues. And Jumanji is a lot of things, and it's really fun. And there's a reason why people have so much love for the kind of revival sequels of that The Rock and everybody are doing, the Jumanji video game, basically versions, but they are all off the back of this one, which is a really amazing cursed board game movie. Maybe it's its own genre, but who knows. Number 2 is The Usual Suspects. This movie is all about the mystery of Kaiser Sose, and it's one of the most amazing reveals in movie history. It's such an amazingly put together plot. The characters stand out a lot as well. This is a early performance for Benicio del Toro that's really kind of special. This group works really well together. And then just again, the mystery of Kaiser Sose, the myth of Kaiser Sose is so amazing. And yeah, the ending is one of the best endings ever. Yeah. Number 1 of 1995 is Toy Story. It's one of my favorite Pixar movies, one of my favorite animated movies. Toy Story is amazing. The beginning of the Andy saga, uh, the Toy Story 1 through 3, and this is my favorite of the Toy Stories as well. Woody and Buzz are amazing, and all the other toys. Some of the best voice acting in all of Pixar is in this movie. And they tried to hold on to those voice actors as long as they could, but of course they were aging and they had to replace voices or copy their voices over in some of the later films. But there is some great voice character voiceover work, and of course this is the first John Ratzenberg voice performance in Pixar, and he basically hasn't not had a voice in a Pixar movie until fairly recently. He started missing a few, but it was a big long run where he had been in everything, which is pretty cool. So Toy Story is my number 1 of 1995. My number 1, let's do 1996. Okay, I have 16 movies, so I'm going to try to go through some of these fast. Dunstan Checks In is only on this list, not because it really rivals with any of these, but I just wanted to share this nostalgia gem with you guys. This is about a kid who's so I think he's a circus monkey. I can't remember how it works out, but he's an escaped circus ape that basically gets lost in this hotel, and this kid basically decides to like take him under his wing and keep him from being secured with his bad animal abusive like circus performer owners or whatever. I don't know, but it's a crazy 90s kids movie, and I watched it lots when I was younger, so it's on here. Like it's definitely very dumb, but I always had a lot of fun with it, so it's on the bottom of this 1996 list. 15 is Train Spotting. This is a really great movie. It's a well-made movie. It's hard to watch. The dialogue is sometimes hard to hear or understand. But if you guys remember back to my alphabetizing list, I really like this movie. Is one of my favorite movies on that list. So it kind of goes to show how much I like 1996 movies for it to be down here at number 15. Number 14, From Dusk Till Dawn. I know, I'm sorry. Everybody loves this movie. I think it's really cool. It's great how it turns into from a crime, like kidnapping movie, I guess, like bank robbery movie, and then all of a sudden becomes a vampire movie in the end. I don't think that's really a spoiler. Everybody knows that now. In the last act or whatever, it definitely is a crazy finale as well. I think everybody in this is really good. Quentin Tarantino actually, in an acting role within this, other than Reservoir Dogs, of course, but like in his own movie. But in this movie, he is very unhinged character, very interesting. But very has a like Juliette Lewis made a career of very uncomfortable, being very uncomfortably treated within the 90s, and that was some of the stuff in this movie I was like a little like skeezed out about, with how he treated Juliette Lewis's character. Yeah, it was a little messed up. um Number 13, The Hunchback of Notre Dame. It's a really good Disney anime movie. The gargoyles kill this movie. Um, I like, and Quasimodo is fine. Esmeralda is really good, and then Claude Frollo is one of the best Disney villains, though. So he's definitely the reason why this movie gets, and the animation and the music is why this movie gets accolades for me. Um, yeah, uh, it deserves some recognition though, so it's at my 13. Number 12, Tin Cup. This is just a really fun uh, golf movie. Um, I really like. Um, I really like Kevin Costner and Rene Russo in this together. The like, it's all in the um, like kind of the scene where he's teaching her how to swing and whatever. It's a good scene. It's a good. It's not really the meet cute, but it's a good start of their relationship. Um, yeah, I like golf movies. It's not quite as good as the other golf movie on this year, but it's a really good golf comedy. So, number 11 is Jerry Maguire. Some of the best lines um, in movies. It's like "You Had Me at Hello" and his whole speech before that. Those are great moments at the end of this movie. Show me the money, and it's a really cool movie. It's an insight into sports agent, like the world of being a sports agent, and also like people taking a risk and following their dreams, and like being bold, and uh, his relationship with Renee Zellweger's character is really good too. Um, and of course, the little child acting performance in Jerry Maguire is one of the cutest ever. He made a career of it through the 90s of being a child actor. And yeah, uh, Jerry Maguire is a good movie. Number 10 is one of my nostalgia faves, but it's another Henry Selick stop motion movie, and it definitely deserves a lot more praise than it gets. Um, it's about a bunch like James um, goes on a, I don't know. It's definitely a fantasy where he uh, uh, um, a peach gets grown in size, but also gets grown in size are the bugs and things that were living inside of it, I guess. And James and them all go on this wonderful expedition to like escape his terrible aunties who take care of him, or I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of crazy setup and crazy movie, but one I really love and watched a million times when I was growing up. So, Happy Gilmore is a really good comedy. Adam Sandler can be hit or miss for me sometimes, especially um, some of his comedies through the 90s. You'll notice that I won't be talking about Billy Madison at all because I don't like that movie. But I do like Happy Gilmore, and yeah. Uh, I guess I just like golf movies, so Tin Cup and Happy Gilmore are on this list, and yeah. Number 8 is Homeward Bound 2, Lost in San Francisco. This is a very important movie to me because this is the first movie I ever saw in a theater. Um, I already talked about my love for Homeward Bound. Uh, number 2 is not nearly as good, even though they're Lost in San Francisco, and it's pretty cool to see them kind of like uh, making their way through, as strays through the basically strays through the San Francisco. They have a lot of cool new like like stray characters within this movie. It feels sort of like the strays in like A Lady and the Tramp or some other movies where yeah, we'll have like a collection of stray dogs characters that are interesting. So this one is one of those, but it just doesn't. It's not quite as good as the first one, but it's a very important movie to me. So gets a little bit bump above some other things that maybe other people didn't. Most other people wouldn't have it above. So, but it is for me. Number 8, and again now we have number 7. We have my Orange Blood, my 90s kid Orange Blood, showing. This was Nickelodeon's first movie. It was marketed as and Harriet the Spy. This is a really fun movie. It's the reason why I know the time has come. The walrus said to talk of many things, of shoes and ships and sealing wax and cabbages and kings. And while the sea is boiling hot and whether pigs have wings, that's the reason why I know that little uh, Wallace and the Carpenter section is because of Harriet the Spy. Uh, and this is just a really fun kids movie. It's about you know, like a young kid spy detective sort of character, and I just really enjoy it. This is really good child relationships, like friendships that kind of like are complicated at times, and like it goes through different people's living circumstances, and uh, like Rosie O'Donnell's in this as her nanny, is a really strong character, and they have a good relationship in this, and you know there's a lot of cool stuff in Harriet the Spy. It should get more recognition, I think, and it's at my number 7 for 1996. My number 6 for 1986 is Star Trek First Contact. This is my second favorite Star Trek movie. Um, Sometimes I wonder if I do like it better than uh, Wrath of Khan, but as of right now, this is my number 2. Um, and sometimes I wonder if Voyage Home I like as much as this one, but that's another story. Uh, but anyway, First Contact is a really great Star Trek story. Um, it probably feels the most like Star Trek of any of the movies, because it is a very like encapsulate story, but it also brings in stuff from the show better, like the Borg, and the time travel, but also the history um, of the of not the Enterprise, but the Federation, and how it was born, and uh, kind of the beginning of space like the Vulcans coming first contact because of um, like first developing warp technology and things like that. So this is a really cool movie for like Star Trek history, and like has a really good villain and a time travel element, and then there's also it's a great sci-fi movie uh, on top of a great Star Trek movie. Number 5. I know, everybody, I'm sorry, but I'm a 90s kid, and Space Jam was very important to me growing up. It's one of my favorite movies. Uh, I grew up being a Michael Jordan fan and a UNC Tar Heels fan, and so Space Jam. So Michael Jordan playing basketball with, the Looney Tunes was right up my alley growing up, and honestly, I still really love this movie. I know it has some issues, and certainly, Michael Jordan has become perhaps um, a less lovable figure as he's aged. But I really like the music in this. I really like I don't know. I think the movie's funny. Yes, Lola Bunny is an odd, interestingly designed character, but I really like her character. Other than that, um, and yeah, I just really like Space Jam. I'm sorry, guys. I do. I love the water as the stuff, um, the secret stuff or whatever they call it. Um, the placebo effect that Michael Jordan pulls on them. It's really good. That's a really good bit. And Bill Murray in this movie is like tries to steal the show. Um, like his appearance in the basketball game is ridiculous but amazing. And there's so many great things in that basketball game section as well that I really love Space Jam. Okay. The Rock, of course, is in one of the best 90s action movies, best action movies ever. Sean Connery, Nicolas Cage, Ed Harris, yeah, all of that. This is a great movie. I haven't seen it nearly as much as I should have, but it's a really great movie. There's not much else to say about that. People talk about the shootout scene in the what is it, the shower room or whatever it is. But that whole shootout scene is pretty incredible. Um, and of course the um, and of course the the fuck the prom queen line is one of the best from Sean Connery. So it's really good. So, but I like at number three, I like Independence Day more. This is a batshit insane 90s movie. Will Smith, of course, and Jeff Goldblum, and one of the best one of the best movie presidents ever. Um, and one of the one of the best movie presidents ever in Bill Pullman in this movie. Independence Day is crazy. Boomer will live. The dog survives that explosion in the movie. Uh, that's important. Uh, it's just one of the greatest spectacle movies of the 90s. Uh, like that shot of the White House getting blown up is like iconic, right? I mean, it's on the cover here, right? It's so great. And Welcome to Earth, and there's so many great lines. There's so many great iconic images and scenes. Like definitely the start, like one of the most important disaster porn movies ever. Definitely probably made the craze even bigger in the 90s. So, but I like it a lot. Number two is Bound. This is a Wachowski's movie that I didn't see until fairly recently, but Bound is a goddamn good movie. Like it's a very sexy movie. The two of them, these women playing off each other, is very scintillating, but it's also a really great crime thriller. And kind of the situation they get themselves in with Joey, and then in Joey Pants, this is one of his best performances in a movie. Joe Pantoliano, for those who don't speak the lingo. Joey Pants is great in this movie, and then these two as well. It's just it's a great combination of like I don't know, scintillating romance, scintillating romance, but then the crime thriller elements and like the way things devolve in the end and the way it's plotted, like all the little details of the plotting of this movie as it kind of goes along is so well done. The Wachowskis definitely knew what they're doing. It's one of their earlier movies, and not nearly enough talked about. And number one for 1996 is Scream. This is another one of those movies where um, it's one of those movies I consider to be near perfect. Um, like it's definitely the best slasher. Um, my favorite slasher movie. Like Sydney Prescott is one of the best final girls ever, if not the greatest final girl ever. I think probably Ripley in Alien is maybe the only other one who comes close. But like she's amazing. Um, and just seeing this first movie with her like fighting everybody off and like in some ways this movie isn't perfect because you're like, well, I pretty much know who the killer is like right away. It's pretty obvious, but then there's an extra twist, an extra reveal, and that makes the finale really great. And I just love how that plays out. And yeah, and of course, everybody loves. And of yeah, and of course, everybody loves Jamie Kennedy's uh, performance in this movie, being the horror movie nerd that's supposed to give them all the rules and of horror movies and how to survive them, and it's great. He's awesome. Scream is great. It's amazing. It's one of the best movies of the '90s, one of the best movies, period. Yeah. Okay. All right, 1997 is one of my favorite movies in film period, and certainly the 90s. I'm going to talk about some of these ones at the bottom very fast. Jungle to Jungle is one of my nostalgia movies. This movie probably almost certainly does not age well. Um, it's about Tim Allen, whose son was born in the Amazon or something because his ex-wife does research there with like indigenous peoples, and then his son basically is like had gone native or whatever, but then he comes to the city and um has to come to the city and be with and spend time with his dad, and he's like this, you know, Wall Street like big wig businessman, and he has to handle a son who's basically like Tarzan coming to the big city. And it's a crazy movie, but actually pretty fun. In one of the movies we watched a lot growing up. Then we have Robin Williams in Flubber. This really isn't a good movie, but it's a movie I have a lot of love for growing up. Dancing green slime creatures and Robin Williams, and people bouncing really high on the basketball court. That's the sort of thing you get from Flubber. Ooh, and bowling balls bouncing up and down and hitting people in the head over and over again. That's pretty funny. Yeah, like there's a reason like there's definitely a reason why this movie gets crap, but I always had a lot of fun with it growing up. So this is a nostalgia movie I wanted to bring up for sure. And then Face Off. Uh, like there's definitely enough flaws to this movie for it to not be super high on my 90s list. But if I didn't talk about Face Off in the 90s, I would be it, it wouldn't be a very good 90s episode. Uh, I like The Lost World Jurassic Park a lot, actually. Um, it certainly is a step down from Jurassic Park, but I mean, come on, that's pretty heavy competition. Um, certainly, the rest of the Jurassic movies doesn't live up to the first Jurassic Park, but The Lost World is probably my second favorite one. Um, and I really like Jeff Goldblum being the front and center in this movie, and that's probably why I like it as much as I do. Um, I like the new. I actually also really like the new setting. The of Isla Sonar, Isla Sona. Um, but I also like what I really like about this movie is the new setting of like the original Jurassic Park island, of like the island where they were testing out making the dinosaurs and whatever, and they kind of like left it to be unattended. and they were all supposed to die out, but they didn't. And then, people go to study it, and it is much more of the dinosaurs living in the wild than like, the first one. So that's pretty cool. And life finding the way, But so I like Lost World. Certainly the T-Rex getting loose in San Diego is weird, but still pretty iconic. So I don't know. Number 15, Jackie Brown is a good Quentin Tarantino movie. Yeah. Number 14, Hercules. It's pretty crazy to think that you could combine a Greek myth with gospel choir music, but Hercules managed to figure out that that was a thing that you could do, and they did pretty well. There are some other things that like not everything works for me in Hercules, but the songs work really well. Definitely the music is the highest part, and then Meg is really good, and of course Hades. James Wood is Hades in this is really solid. But there's some other things that are a little bit more grating in this movie, uh, so it's not super high up on my Disney animation list or my animation list period, but it does deserve some recognition, and I still give it a 4 stars, so it's not too shabby. But I actually love Anastasia better when it comes to um, animated movies. This is a Don Bluth movie, um, and um, as good as James Wood is as Hades. I can't remember who the voice actor is. Oh yeah, Chris. I'm an idiot. Christopher Lloyd voices Rasputin within this. It's Rasputin coming back from like the afterlife already. So he's already I don't know. He already died. So of course Rasputin did that a bunch of times. But like he almost works like Hades in the same way. So it's interesting that Anastasia and Hercules are in this year together. Number 12 is Contact. This is one of my favorite Robert uh, Bobby Z movies, Robert Zemeckis movies. It's a weird, interesting blend of spirituality and science to try to like focusing on the presence of uh, alien life, and I just love how the mix of those two things within this movie. Jodie Foster gives a great performance in it. Um, yeah, I like Contact. I always wish I could give Contact even more credit than I do already, uh, and push it higher up different ranks. Maybe one day I'll have enough guts to put it up even higher, but right now it's at my 12 of 1997. Again, a year I really love. The Game, I just finally watched that from David Fincher. It was my lone David Fincher movie I had not seen, and I really love The Game. It's my third favorite David Fincher movie. Um, it's a great, compelling, like doesn't hold back plot. It like starts and keeps going and going and going and going and doesn't let up until the very end. And it's a crazy ride, but I really enjoyed it. So, Titanic. I am not like obviously Titanic is an amazing feat. It's one of the most iconic most important movies, blockbuster movies ever. Uh, James Cameron obviously is being talked about a lot right now, uh, for good reason. But Titanic was his first. Well, it wasn't even his big, but this is his first big whale. Like, this was a movie that made buku bucks. Like, obviously he had Terminators before this, but like Titanic was the movie that like he took over the world on. Um, and Titanic was a crazy achievement. Um, uh, really, the thing I like the most about this movie is the effects work, is the ship and the whole sinking sequence. Like the whole back half of this movie is so good technically, and like you do, even though the romance and drama beforehand is pretty silly, you do wind up caring for a lot of characters in this, and just like, yeah, as people are getting trapped and drowning, and oh my, yeah, it's a horror scene for sure. Um, and honestly, the Leo and Kate Winslet stuff is honestly it's also iconic in its own right. Obviously, the doing her nude portrait on the couch is an iconic scene. Um, but again, I know apparently James Cameron did some research and some experiments to uh, tell us naysayers wrong, but she could have definitely made room for Leo on that door, that floating door. So um, there, like, a lot of the relationship stuff is pretty silly in this movie, and that's why I have a little bit lower. I don't nearly hold it in as high regard as other people, but I still think it's very good. It's a great achievement from James Cameron for sure. I really love more though. Number 9, George of the Jungle. This is a big, dumb, stupid movie, but it's supposed to be a big, dumb, stupid movie. It absolutely knows it is. And Brendan Fraser is a great 90s star, great 90s action star. As many times as he crashes into trees is a lot of great commitment. Um, I just love I love the style of this movie. Like uh the narrator and the comedy, and I don't know. It's a really good movie. Legitimately, it's a really good comedy from the 90s, and I don't think people given enough legitimate credit because it is a big dumb movie, but it's supposed to be, and it knows it is, and that's the point. So I love it for that. Another 90s dog movie that I love is Air Bud. Yes, the basketball playing dog. This was a nostalgia favorite. Growing up, watched it many, many times. I love basketball playing Air Bud dog. Also, the sequels are pretty audacious and ridiculous, and I love that they exist. So Air Bud started that. Um, yep. Number 7 is Men in Black. Uh, and an amazing, iconic 90s movie. Right up, like, I certainly with alien movies, you got Independence Day and Men in Black, that basically two-handers that make for uh some of the like most recognizable 90s action movies, like sci-fi action movies ever. So that's number 7. Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, of course, are great um, partners in crime, or partners in alien homeland security, or whatever whatever you want to call it, but it's fun. Number 6 is Good Will Hunting. Another great Robin Williams performance in the 90s, and Matt Damon's and Ben Affleck really kind of launching their success in the acting world and writing and directing world. Excuse me. And of course, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck also breaking into uh, the film world as writers, and their screenplay getting recognition from this movie. So this is a really good movie. I haven't watched it nearly as many times as I should, but it's one I always enjoyed when I watch it. Number 5 is Con Air. This is one of my favorite Nicolas Cage movies, one of my favorite 90s action movies. Uh, Con Air is so awesome. It is very stupid, for sure. But I love needing to put the bunny back in the box, and uh, the plane crashing into Las Vegas Strip, and there's so many great things in this movie. Uh, yeah, it's really undeniable, even though people try to deny it. But it's amazing. It's great. Number 4 is one of my favorite animated, like, Miyazaki movies. It's one of those movies that's in like basically a three-way tie for my favorite Miyazaki movie. But Princess Mononoke, um, I what I love about this movie is just like uh, you have the two sides of this dilemma, and then our main character is in between, but you see kind of the you see both sides. It's not a black and white, like this person's right, this person's wrong. We certainly are more wanting to side with like Mononoke and like the spirits and the nature, protecting nature and whatnot. But you do understand this towns of women who have taken it upon themselves to uh, make their town livable, and unfortunately, they need this industrial complex to be able to do that, but also make weapons for to defend themselves and to stock their army, like the armies who are fighting like the emperor. There's a lot of the emperor and wars that are going on. Japan, I guess, or whatever the comparable thing is in this movie. Um, but it's just such a beautiful way of kind of having this like nobody can really win because yeah, it's like this no-win situation for everyone. And that's really tragic but haunting and beautiful all at the same time. So I really like this movie. Number three, As Good as It Gets. I kind of hate how much I love this movie. I really shouldn't, and I know it, but I I like this movie. This is probably my favorite Jack Nicholson movie. He is a complete and utter asshole. He is one of the worst people ever in the beginning of this, and I love the turn and the arc of this character and how he changes, and his relationship with Helen Hunt is great. Their reluctant romance, I suppose. Yeah, he very much doesn't know what no means, which is not good, for sure. Uh, but as this movie unfolds, like dynamics change and whatever, and um, I don't know. It's a really well done movie. I think even though there's problematic stuff in it, but the movie knows it's problematic, and that's sort of the point too. So it's not like they're letting him off the hook. Um, I mean, I guess they do at the end, but he does learn and grow in order for him to be let off the hook. So, yeah, number three of 1997. Number two of 1997, my favorite Paul Verhoeven movie, Starship Troopers. The first time I watched this movie, I thought this was a really fun movie. It's, shooting up bugs, space adventure. But, as I got older and rewatched this and learned better the satire elements of it all, it just added those extra layers that makes this one of my favorite movies. Period. I love the satire of like the fascist propaganda, um, kind of the fascist wartime propaganda, and like how it's yeah, it's really yeah, it's a satire of those sorts of things, and it's really good. But then on its face, it's just a fun adventure with a group of characters that are shooting up bugs in space, and that's exciting for sure. Um, Johnny Rico and Riz, yeah, and all that. This movie's so good. I can watch it so many times. Uh, yeah. And another movie I can watch so many times is my number one of 1987 is The Fifth Element, one of my favorite movies ever. I really like Bruce Willis in the 90s, as many people do. Um, and of course, you have Lilu Dallas Multipass in this movie. Um, and Mila Jovovich in this movie is the reason why I love it so much. I love her as Lilu. But then you have Ian Holm and Gary Oldman as the villain, and there's just so much great stuff. And Chris Tucker is incredible in this movie. I love how crazy this movie is, and big and bold and gorgeous and stupid and silly and wonderful. All those things. All right, 1998. We're getting there. I promise. Okay. We're to 1998, and I'm going to go down to the bottom and talk about some ones that are important for nostalgia factor. Pokemon, the first movie, I remember when it came out, and it was fun, and it's not really that great of a movie, but it's one I have a lot of fun with still, even though it's pretty silly. Then we have Lion King's 2, Simba's Pride. I have a soft spot for this movie. I love Kovu, the Scar ancestor, and the Romeo and Juliet of Lion King. It's really underrated. I think it's one of the best. It's one of the best straight to video Disney sequels that came out, starting around now in the 90s, kind of trying to capitalize off of the Disney Renaissance, while it's still going on, I guess, and then leading into later eras of Disney animation. But this was definitely a thing, and I like Simba's Pride. And Enemy Estate is a really good crime thriller, I guess you call it, spy thriller with Will Smith and um, Gene Hackman. Uh, then we have the Truman Show. A lot of people like this movie even better. I just haven't seen it enough times probably to give it quite its due. But it's a really good Jim Carrey movie. Um, really good premise for obviously a guy, his life being made into a TV show and him not realizing it. And yeah, that's interesting. It's a good setup, and they do a lot of cool stuff with it. But it's just not as important of a movie to me. American History X is like a really well-made movie. Let's see. Yeah, like Edward Norton is putting on a masterclass performance in this movie. That's what this movie is all about. But like his past of being a white supremacist, neo-Nazi, uh, and then kind of changing his ways, and I don't know. Um, it's quite the journey and quite the movie. It's number 14 for 1998. Number 13, The Prince of Egypt, a gorgeous animated movie. Really good voice acting. The Moses story, basically, and it's a really good anime movie. Lots of people, probably several people, have it much higher than me, but I think it's still worth recognizing. But it's at my 13 because I like a lot of movies in this year. Number 12 is What Dreams May Come. This is Robin Williams travels through to the afterlife to go after his wife that committed suicide, and he's trying to save her from um, basically not getting to go to basically not getting to go to like heaven, or like this movie's concept of it, and then trying to like basically rescue her from the like hell, or the equivalent, so that her afterlife isn't terrible, or actually even bring her back from death, as is also part of his goal. And then Cuba Gooding Jr. is like this angel, basically, who's kind of like teaching him the ways of here and trying to help him and be a guide of some sorts. Yeah, that's What Dreams May Come. It's a really beautiful movie. Number 12, Jack Frost. Yes, I know people are going to be rolling their eyes at me for this one, but I love me some Michael Keaton Snow Dad. Yeah, this isn't the horror movie. This is Michael Keaton Snow Dad, where he gets into a snowball fight with a bunch of kids as a snowman. He also teaches his son how to play hockey and shoot a nasty wrister, which is not a unique shot within hockey, but this movie makes it look good. So I don't know. Yeah, this movie is definitely dumb. I know it is, but I love how like ridiculous it is. Um, Honestly, the snowball sequence is amazing though, and then the like chase scene on the sled or whatever in this movie is crazy too. Um, yeah, um, I don't know what to say, guys. I like me some Jack Frost. Sorry. And then we're number 10. I have The Big Lebowski. Um, this movie is a very big strange comedy from the Coen brothers. I think so much of this movie is some of the best in any comedy movie. The dude abides and all that stuff, and John Goodman, um, and Steve Buscemi and all the people that are in this movie. But it gets really weird, guys. This movie gets really weird, and the depths it goes to in its weirdness isn't 100% for me, but I do appreciate this movie enough for it to be number 10 of that year of 1998. Number 9 is A Bug's Life. I know people don't think about this one quite as highly within the Pixar ranks, but this is a big nostalgia movie for me too because it's early Pixar. And I remember when this movie came out and seeing it, and fell in love with it right away. Love the colorful cast of characters and the voice acting, and um, I've always had a soft spot for this within my Pixar ranks, within animated movies. So it's my number 9 of 1998. Number 8 of 1998 is Rushmore. Um, this is my favorite. Yeah, this is my favorite Wes Anderson movie. I think I did decide that a little once I watched through all of them. I was not expecting Rushmore to be my favorite, but for whatever reason, I just really got won over by this one in particular. The Wes Anderson banter comedy in this between Jason Schwartzman and Bill Murray and Olivia Williams. I think I'm getting that name right. Olivia Williams, who plays the very inappropriate love interest for him within the movie, and that part's definitely very weird, and but for whatever reason the movie overcomes that, and well, mainly because that character is amazing, and this becomes like a weird trio friendship, um, and I don't know, uh, I like how this kid does all the extracurriculars but is terrible in school, and that seems so crazy. Um, how he has all these skills to like be a big part of all these clubs and make things happen, but for whatever reason he can't uh, spend enough time on his schoolwork to make good grades. It's interesting. Um, yeah. So the number 7 is The Parent Trap. I really like this. It's really hard to think about this movie. Seeing where kind of the kind of journey Lindsay Lohan has gone on. I guess she's trying to make a comeback now, but she definitely had a dark patch for a while, and it definitely is weird to think about this little this little Lindsay Lohan as Parent Trap twins. Um, but I really enjoy this movie. It's really good. Um, Obviously, it's a remake, but and yeah, but it's one of my favorite movies. It is my favorite Nancy Meyers movie, um, and yeah, I think Lindsay Lohan is doing really great child acting in this. Like she made quite a career of doing that, like in the 90s and into the early 2000s. For a reason, she's a very impressive actress, yeah, at the time. Um, and I guess I do hope that she can get some of that back in adulthood. But yeah, we'll see. And number 6 is Blade. This is such a cool, awesome action movie, comic book movie. Like Wesley Snipes' Blade is amazing. There's not really any denying that. It's a great bloody mess and lovely, and yeah, he's cool. Number 5, though, gets the bump over Blade just barely, and that's Rush Hour. Jackie Chan and Chris Tucker. I talked about my Chris Tucker love a few times now, and Rush Hour is definitely peak Chris Tucker. And the way Chris Tucker and Jackie Chan play off each other is so much fun. This is definitely one of my favorite comedies, crime buddy action, like buddy cop movies. Like it's so many things and so wonderful. So 5 is Rush Hour. Number 4 is You've Got Mail. Took me a very long time to see this movie. As I said before, I did the like Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan trifecta, like all together, and You've Got Mail was one of those, and this is my favorite of those. Um, I really love this movie. Uh, at points I don't know. Um, it's just a really good concept for like them developing their relationship. You should really condemn the movie probably with like how he decides to handle things once he figures out who she is, and he knows things and she doesn't, and the way he handles it is a little bit problematic. But then they're able to like stick the landing, so to speak, and make it more okay by the end. It's still a little shady, but I don't know. You've Gotten Mail like really earns all the stuff that it goes. I don't know. It really earns what it gets by the end of the movie. So yeah. Number 3 is Disney's Mulan. This is one of my favorite Disney animation movies. One of my favorite of Disney '90s animation. So it's Mulan. Uh, Eddie Murphy as Mushu and Ming Na Wen as Mulan. Um, it's just a really powerful story about her taking up this position to like kind of protect her family and her father, and uh, um, fight for her country against invader. Yeah, I don't know all those things, but it's great. Number 2, Saving Private Ryan, one of Spielberg's best. It's one of the best war movies ever made. The sequence at the beginning with the D-Day with D-Day um, is one of the best shot war sequences ever. Janusz Kaminski, of course, is the cinematographer, all that. But Steven Spielberg really and him really made a masterpiece, particularly with that um, opening D-Day sequence. The rest of the movie was really good too. It's a great acting ensemble. Um, Matt Damon might actually be the weakest link within the movie by the end, as Private Ryan. But once you get to that final battle as well, it's just oh my gosh, it's such a great war setup. And it's a really interesting premise for this movie of like them kind of taking a break from the fight, like the big fight, and like taking the time to basically try to keep a family from suffering more pain and loss during wartime. And that's a really great, interesting story. And one of my favorite movies of the '90s is 1998's The Mask of Zorro. Antonio Banderas stepping into the role as new Zorro after Anthony Hopkins wore the mantle, but he was discredited and like I don't know, cast out and lost his family, and wife was murdered and kid was kidnapped and all that stuff. And put into prison and had to break out, and yeah. Anyway, he teaches his ways to Antonio Banderas, and he kind of fights for. This is before California, like earning its independence and whatever. But there's Dons and Catherine Zeta-Jones, and one of the best sword fight sequences ever slash romantic scenes ever with the sword fight between him and Catherine Zeta-Jones' character, and obviously the dress cutting part of the scene. Mask of Zorro is awesome. Uh, Such a great action movie. So much fun, pulpy adventure action. All right. And now we get to 1999. 19, The Hurricane. It's a really good biopic. Denzel Washington's amazing. It's one of his best performances. That's why I wanted to put it on here. Like it's not a movie I care about as much. I do have an issue with biopics as far as that goes because like they can get a little procedural. The Hurricane's one of the better ones, but I mean, this is the '90s. I love a lot of '90s movies, so it's just lower because there's other things I like better. Girl Interrupted, Winona Ryder, like Angelina Jolie, a crazy, great, amazing cast of young women actors, and a mental asylum. It's basically One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, but a women's asylum. But uh, I really enjoy this group of actresses, group of characters. Um, yeah, I'm a big Winona Ryder fan. So you'll probably see Winona Ryder pop up a bunch within my lists going through the decades. And then Big Daddy is one of my favorite Adam Sandler movies. Um, it's a great father-son story and about a guy taking responsibility who doesn't usually take very much responsibility and like changing his ways. And just really like that arc. So Big Daddy is a good, heartwarming movie. Being John Malkovich is very weird movie, but very good. Spike, yeah, Spike Jonze's like original like movie that like made him famous. Um, Obviously John Malkovich is in it, and then there's John Cusack who gets to go inside and control John Malkovich through some weird portal thing. Yeah, it's weird, but very interesting sci-fi concept, and the way the story plays out is weird too, with Cameron Diaz and everything, and yeah, being John Malkovich is a weird movie, but very good. I'm in Tarzan. I love the tree surfing and the Phil Collins music, and yeah, that's what I think about Tarzan. Uh, yeah, number 15. Number 14, Sleepy Hollow is a really good Tim Burton movie. I love the aesthetic of this movie, the like black and white and how color like really pops within the movie when it shows up with the red of blood and things like that. And it's just a really good, interesting twist on the Sleepy Hollow, like Ichabod Crane, Headless Horseman story. It's probably my preferred version, I guess. And number 13 is The Green Mile. This is some of the best performances, like acting performances, like you'll ever see. Um, of course, Michael Clark Duncan is amazing in it. Tom Hanks is amazing in it, and Sam Rockwell is one of the most despicable people um, you'll ever see in a movie. He is quite the villain in this. Um, and number 12, we have Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. I think there was the opportunity for International Man of Mystery to be on an earlier list, but I don't like the first one quite as much. But I do really like the second one with Heather Graham supporting, and yeah, this is my favorite Austin Powers movie. You know, Mike Myers, of course, is really good as Austin Powers. And I really like the big dumb comedy of it all, and Doctor Evil, and this is where you get Mini Me and uh, more Scott stuff, and yeah, I really like Spy Who Shagged Me, and Heather Graham is really amazing supporting. I know lots of people um, love. I know lots of people love Elizabeth Hurley in the first one as much, if not more. But uh, Heather Graham is my Austin Powers girl. If you're talking like Bond girl, I don't know, whatever. And the number 11 is Fight Club. I have a very crowded 1999, and Fight Club is my second favorite David Fincher movie. Um, and every time I watch it, I get something new out of it, and it's even more impressive. At times, sometimes I've rewatched it and I see more detractors, but uh, more so, I find something new that I really like about it. So, Fight Club is a really uniquely constructed movie. The story, I've never like the way it starts out is like unlike any other movie you'll ever see. Like about a person going through a bunch of like anonymous meetings and then winds up creating this fight club, and this is probably Brad Pitt's best perform like I think this is my yeah, I think this is Brad Pitt's best performance in Fight Club. So you have that going for it too. It's um not to say that Edward Norton isn't he's very good in it, of course, too, but Brad Pitt a little overshadows him for a lot of it, which is sort of the point. Um, but yeah. Anyway, number 10 is The Sixth Sense, one of the greatest twist endings ever. But everybody knows the twist now, but I still won't say it just to be polite, I guess. Macaulay Culkin is no, no, nope. Haley Joel Osment is a very iconic child actor, mainly because of this movie, but he did a lot through the 90s that is um, recognizable. He was around a lot as a child actor. And number 9, Magnolia. Um, this is such a weird movie. Um, and yet at the same time, it's undeniable, almost undeniable that it is Paul Thomas Anderson's best movie, best made movie. And it is my favorite of his movies. But I think it's just because um, like um, the batshit insanity of this movie and how it's written, how it moves, and how things develop. Like you never see how anything is going to turn out. Uh, like some of the characters you can't stand like a lot, but they're supposed to be that way, uh, and then like the fates of the different characters are really interesting. So Magnolia is a very strange, like crazy movie, and then of course you have frogs raining from the sky, which what the fuck is that? But it is a masterful movie. It's hard to put your finger on why it is, but you just know it when you're watching it. It's one of those movies. Number 8 is 10 Things I Hate About You. This is a movie I hadn't. It took me a very long time to watch for the first time, but it's one of my favorite rom-coms now. Um, Heath Led Heath Ledger is awesome in it. Um, Heath Ledger is awesome. Heath Ledger is awesome in it as is Julia Stiles. Um, and like the scene where he's singing to her is one of the best scenes. It's definitely the best scene from the movie. But it's so good. Number 7 is The Iron Giant. Um, yeah, this is a wonderfully charming, cute, heartwarming animated movie. Also from Don Bluth, I believe. If I got that wrong, I'm sorry, people. But it's a really great animated movie. It's about this basically alien robot weapon who crashes to Earth and doesn't remember anything, but this kid finds him, and then it's like um, it's sort of a Superman story. It's got like a Superman allegory to it, which is is a very cool piece. But it's this wonderful arc of like him realizing he can be a destructive force, but then wanting to like he's being taught by this kid how to be good and like not do that, and like how he doesn't have to be that weapon that he's made to be, and he can be something different and something greater and better, and that's just amazing. I love it. It's the best Superman movie there is. Yeah, I said it. Sorry. Number six is Dogma. This is my favorite Kevin Smith movie. That maybe isn't saying that much, um, but I really love Dogma. Alan Rickman is my favorite part in this movie. There's lots of great parts, but I really love Alan Rickman's role in it. He's quite funny. Um, yeah, this is a good comedy. Dogma. Toy Story 2 uh, is my number five. I really love the addition of Jesse, and also how Woody gets to go on this adventure of realizing like maybe he starts, it's sort of like the first one where he's being overshadowed by the new toy, but in this case uh it's again like maybe Andy's growing out of him, or he's damaged and kind of forgotten about, and he's going on this arc of like, oh well, he maybe there's this other, could be this other life for me as a toy, of being this person's prized possession as this, and learning where he came from and those sorts of things is really cool. There's a lot of heart, as much heart in this movie as there is in the first one. And Jesse's song in this movie is, uh, I think it's the best song in Toy Story's collection. Sorry, Randy Newman's "You Got a Friend in Me" from the first one. Um, Number four, October Sky is a nostalgia gem for me. I don't know what I actually don't know what other people think about this movie. It's got Laura Dern as a as she's not the first person, obviously. It's Jake Gyllenhaal, who is a kid growing up in coal mining country, West Virginia, and but he has aspirations to like build rockets and for NASA, like, and get to the point where he can work for NASA and like all because he sees this is around when Sputnik is first launched and orbiting, and people are all scared, but he and his buddies basically start building rockets and try to see like how high they can make them go, and learning math and science and stuff to do it on the side of their thing, and then join the science fair, and that's really nice. But they're Laura Dern, um, who's a really good teacher character. But then, honestly, the reason why this movie is so good is Chris Cooper as the dad, and basically he's this really hard, like, um, um, really unrelenting father who has been, mining coal his whole life. He's the head of the family, and he wants his son to follow in his footsteps, and he doesn't understand him and how he wants to do all like these other things. And I don't know. There's a great father-son story within this, and um, yeah, uh, Chris Cooper is amazing in this movie. And so October Sky is my number four, one of my favorite movies ever. Number three, Galaxy Quest. Uh, like I said, I really love Star Trek movies, but the Star Trek movies don't always rise up to the level of the shows for me. But Galaxy Quest is one of the best Star Trek movies there is. It has so much of what makes Star Trek, but then it has this great, like, almost like spoof comedy, but then like a spoof meta comedy, and it's just such a fun ride too, and like Tim Allen and Sigourney Weaver and Alan Rickman, they have such iconic characters in this, and them helping like the aliens in the movie. It's sort of like it's also sort of like Three Amigos storyline as well. So it's like Three Amigos smashed together with like Star Trek, and you get Galaxy Quest, and it's great. Um, and then you have number two. I love The Mummy. 1999's The Mummy. Like Rachel Weisz is one of my early crushes for sure in this movie. Is for sure. I am a librarian. I just and Brendan Fraser. This is peak Brendan Fraser. I already talked about him with George of the Jungle, but he's uh even more amazing in The Mummy. Uh, Lots of I think it's become more popular for people to love this movie than to hate on it, but there's definitely haters out there, and I don't understand you people, because The Mummy is awesome. Uh, yeah. And number one, The Matrix is one of the most important movies, I think, of like in just like how movies developed after it. Um, like this as far as special effects go, with a bullet time, of course, but then also just like how sci-fi action really launched into the stratosphere after the Matrix, and everybody wanted to make the next Matrix. Some of that was good, some of that not so good, but the Matrix definitely started a movement, started a lot of really cool things, but also in its own right, it does a lot of the sci-fi these really interesting sci-fi concepts and action sequences, and uh, like there's so much cool stuff in the Matrix, and I think it still holds up today. The sequels somewhat make give this movie a little bit worse of a rap, but I honestly think the first Matrix could stand on its own. Uh, I think it's uh, such a great movie, and so I can like move the sequels aside, even though I don't mind the sequels that much, and just like hold this one up on a pedestal because it deserves to be on a pedestal. Um, yeah. Okay. We got through each year of the 90s now, and yeah. Okay. Sorry, guys. The 90s is very important to me, so I have a lot to say, and obviously, and so we're gonna get to the top 100 of the 1990s. All right. Um, we're gonna go through it. So again, if you guys remember at the beginning, I was talking about how, and you guys have seen it as the years gone along, how it's played out. But my nostalgia favorites are very strong within the 90s, and there are some great 90s classics that are slid further down these rankings because I have some other ones higher that are just some of my favorites from growing up. So that's how this goes. Uh, Number 100. I If I had any more guts, I would just leave Goodfellas off the list. I talked about how I'm not a Scorsese fan, and I'm not a mob movie fan. But Goodfellas is one of the most talked about, lauded over movies there are. It's an important movie for that reason. It's a well-made movie. Uh, and I do think it's important for a 90s list for Goodfellas to be on it, even if it is at the last place for the top 100. And similarly, Titanic, you can't talk about the 90s blockbuster, 90s and 90s blockbusters without talking about James Cameron's Titanic. And being able to include it on the list. So I slide it at 99. I talked about the reasons why I think it's really amazing, but also some of the reasons why it's not I'm not as high on it as a lot of other people. But yeah, so it's at 99 for my top 100. I'll move it through a little faster now. Those ones I felt like were important to explain why they're at the bottom, since other people would have them potentially very much higher. Number 98, I have Sleepy Hollow. Number 97, Jerry Maguire. Number 96, Robin Hood Men in Tights. Number 95, James and the Giant Peach. 94, Hot Shots Part 2. Number 93, Jack Frost. Yeah, I know. Jack Frost made it on the top 100, guys. I'm sorry, but I do love me some Michael Keaton Snow Dad. A Few Good Men, 92. Father of the Bride, 91. The Green Mile, number 90. Number 89, Happy Gilmore. Number 88, Austin Powers, The Spy Who Shagged Me. Number 87, Homeward Bound 2. Number 86, The Big Lebowski. Number 85, Friday. Number 84, The Mask. Number 83, Clueless. Number 82, Groundhog Day. 81, Heat. Number 80, Point Break. Number 79, Speed. Number 78, Harriet the Spy. Yeah, I talked about how much love I have for that movie. My orange 90s kid blood is very strong. And number 77 is The Santa Claus. Number 76 is Mortal Kombat. So that's the 76 through 100. Moving on to 75 and down to 50. We got Pulp Fiction at 75. I know people are like, what? Pulp Fiction that low? Sorry. I explained where I stand on Pulp Fiction. Number 74 is Total Recall. 73 is Fight Club. 72 is Star Trek First Contact. 71 is The Sixth Sense. Number 70 is Gremlins 2, the new batch. I almost said the Bad Batch. It's not a Star Wars show, sorry. Number 69 is Cool Runnings, Noise. I didn't even mean to do that, but it worked out. George of the Jungle is number 68. A Bug's Life is number 69. 67, okay. 66 is Air Bud. 65 is Space Jam. You'll notice there was a very big run of nostalgia love right there with Cool Runnings, George of the Jungle, A Bug's Life, Air Bud, and Space Jam all in a row. Certainly a wall of nostalgia faves that are above lots of other things. Then we have 64, Batman Returns. Number 63, The Rock. Number 62, Men in Black. Number 61, Independence Day. It's really hard to separate Independence Day and Men in Black, so they wind up being right next to each other again. Number 60 is Good Will Hunting. Number 59 is Con Air. Number 58 is Magnolia. Number 57 is Unforgiven. Number 56 is Leaving Las Vegas. Number 55 is Rushmore. Number 54 is Reservoir Dogs. 53, 10 Things I Hate About You. Bound is number 52, and The Parent Trap is number 51. All right, jumping into the top 50 now. Number 50 is The Iron Giant. Number 49, Thelma and Louise. Number 48 is Before Sunrise. 47 is Blade. 46 is Seven. 45 is Rush Hour. 45, Leon the Professional. Number 43, Jumanji. 42, Dogma. 41, The Muppet Christmas Carol. Number 40, The Nightmare Before Christmas. Number 39, The Silence of the Lambs. I talked about how Silence of the Lambs slid down a little bit in 1991, and you'll see it at 39 here. At one point, I had it up a little bit higher in this top 100 when I first started making it, but then I kind of was like, oh yeah, I do like this better, and this better, and this better, and this better. Like, it's an amazing movie. I just like other things better, and that's just how these lists go. Number 38 is Tremors. Number 37 is Glengarry Glen Ross. 36 is Princess Mononoke. 35 is You've Got Mail. 34 is The Mighty Ducks. 33 is Mulan. 32 is Toy Story 2. 31 is Rookie of the Year. Spoilers. Sorry. Number 30 is Terminator 2 Judgment Day. I know many of you guys want me to have that up in the top 10. I'm sorry. Not quite there. As Good as It Gets, number 29. Number 28, October Sky. 27 is Beauty and the Beast. And then 26, The Usual Suspects. Okay. All right, and 25, we have Galaxy Quest. 24, Forrest Gump. 23, Starship Troopers. 22, Edward Scissorhands. And yes, 21, Fern Gully is that high up. I'm sorry, everybody. I love it. Number 20 is Boys in the Hood. Number 19 is Saving Private Ryan. Number 18 is Schindler's List. Number 17, Toy Story. And yeah, I did have the Spielberg back-to-back there, if you noticed. Number 17 is Toy Story. Number 16 is Mrs. Doubtfire. Number 15 is Tombstone. Number 14 is The Mask of Zorro. Number 13 is D2. Whoops. Number 13 is D2, The Mighty Ducks. Number 12 is Homeward Bound. And number 11 is The Sandlot. I really, really wanted The Sandlot and Homeward Bound to make it into the last two spots of the top 10 that you'll see above. But I did want to have a good, I don't know, a good looking top 10 for the 90s. I wanted to make sure that it represented the 90s and was a great set of movies. And I think what is above really does. I've let my nostalgia love really take over a lot of this list. And you'll see in my top 10, there's still plenty of room for my nostalgia love to get a little out of control. But these three, like all the way through D2, the Mighty Ducks, like those could have all challenged for my top 10 because I love them so much as nostalgia favorites. And we get to our top 10. At number 10, we have A League of Their Own. Number 9, The Mummy. Number 8, Scream. Number 7, The Shawshank Redemption. Number 6, Aladdin. Number 5, The Matrix. Number 4, The Lion King. Number 3, Jurassic Park. Number 2, The Fifth Element. And number 1 is Hook, one of my favorite movies ever. Some of these in the top here are some of my favorite movies ever. Some of the most important movies to me. Basically, 1 through 13, 1 through, I don't know, 15, 16. I don't know. Basically, this whole list is like that, but like the top 20, top 10, top 13, like all these are really important movies to me. Really great, amazing movies in my eyes. So, yeah, that is my top 100 movies of the decade for the 1990s. Yeah. Okay, that was a long one, guys. I knew the 90s episode was gonna be long. This wound up being longer than the episode where I also talked about Hitchcock movies with the 80s. So, sorry. But I wanted to make sure I got in as many of my thoughts about the 90s movies as I could because the 90s is really important to me and hopefully that came through and hopefully you guys enjoyed hearing my thoughts about the movies I grew up with, the movies I didn't grow up with and caught up to later on that I still really love, and just kind of what I think about the 90s overall. And I hope you appreciate how unique my top 100 list is. And my reasonings for everything. So, yeah, that's the 90s. Next week, we'll be talking about the 2000s, the 00s, or whatever you want to call them. The aughts. Is that what we call them? I don't know. Hopefully, you guys are enjoying this series. And I know it's long, but, if you can stick with me and watch in chunks or whatever, hopefully that's something you're able to do. All right. Anyway, I'll see you guys next week for the 2000s.